everybody. My name is Shelby Luna, and this is my presentation for the Aiden Fall Forum. I did this presentation at the ALCA training session at Jeff State in October. So I'm just going to do a really quick run through on this. I am, like it says on the PowerPoint, from Northwest Shoals Community College. We've been taking the ADA compliance and the new rule change, and I'm just switching screens now. But we've been taking that in stride here and really working towards being fully compliant for the deadline coming up in April of 2026. So some objectives that we'll run through pretty quickly are understanding compliance changes, developing and implementing a plan, monitoring the progress, the ally accessibility reports, LTI integrations, and practical strategies that we use. So as many people know, and if you don't, here's what's changed. So April 2024, the DOJ ruled that they would be updating the Title II of the ADA compliance plan to require very specific web and mobile app accessibility. And these changes were for state and local governments specifically, which, being a community college, we fall into that category. The rule change applies to the state and local governments, obviously, but anyone that is contracted inside or outside of the college to make the accessibility changes if they're providing web content or mobile apps. And now we are following the WCAG version 2.1 level AA technical standards. That is the main standard that everybody is trying to get in compliance with. There were a couple of exceptions for the new ruling. So any kind of archived web content, and I know especially for larger universities or even the larger community colleges in the state, when we, especially, and I'll just say from our viewpoint as a community college, when we rolled over to Canvas, a lot of our content was archived from Blackboard, so it makes it a little bit easier to kind of weed through what is not being used. So with this exception, it has to be anything that is not in constant circulation and something that's not used at all or student-facing. There was also pre-existing conventional electronic documents, so things that I know, like DocuSign, so some old DocuSign or dynamic forms, those that are not in circulation regularly or being updated or used, those are falling into that category as well. Third-party content posted independently, so this would be thinking about message boards, thinking about comment sections, things that are not governed by the state or local government or entity. Individualized password protected documents, even though that is in the exceptions, if a department or a college is asked to provide a more accessible document, they must comply with that request. And then pre-existing social media posts, so anything posted before the April 2026 deadline does not have to be updated for ADA compliance. So the ACCS, which is the Alabama Community College System, does fit into the first due date, which is the April 24th, 2026 date. I believe the second one is April of 2027. But we serve over 50,000 individuals as a full system, so that's why we fall into the earlier category. So when we originally sat down to make a plan for ADA compliance, we started with doing a deep dive. Our instructional designer in the department, Ms. Classy Childress, brought this to our attention, especially with her background with the instructional design. She was a little more familiar with the ADA and compliance standards. So we did a deep dive to figure out what the true rule was, and to figure out the WCAG standards, things that we needed to do. So the first thing we did was look at the fact sheet from the ada.gov website to figure out what the ruling was, what the verbiage was, how does it fit into what we do every day, and how can we become compliant. We looked over the POR rubric, and then with those WCAG, and I'm just going to refer to it as WCAG from this one forward because that's what we just call it. But with those standards, we did create a companion guide and an explanation sheet, which I'm more than happy to share at any time. But that's just kind of to explain to our faculty and staff what those expectations are, what it looks like when it's not compliant, and then what it looks like when it is compliant. And then the second thing that we did was create a distance education accessibility policy. That way we are covered in the future. It holds us accountable as a department, and it makes us make sure that we get all of our goals met, and we send out the correct information, and we're able to communicate transparently. With that being said, our distance education department, we took on all of this because it is web-based content in the Canvas instance. The individual handling the website accessibility is a different entity altogether. It's someone within the college that's not our department. And so we did that because we have constant interaction with Canvas every day. So it just made a little more sense to not have to train someone else. But we have looped in the appropriate people into this. So it is a full college adventure at this point. The third thing that we did was we looked at a timeline, like a very realistic timeline with obtainable goals. And I do have a copy of it that I can put in to the submission for the fall forum. That way everybody can see kind of what it looks like. But it is a monthly plan from August, which is when we originally brought this to, and you'll see 4th and 5th, is when we brought it to the deans and the vice president, which then went into academic council for voting, which was accepted. But that plan, we call it the ADA Compliance Plan for Northwest Shoals. It features sections such as purpose, the current accessibility status of the college, compliance deadline, and the implementation timeline. So again, going back to that, the implementation timeline is monthly. It talks about what is expected of faculty and staff, what actions they are responsible for, as well as what our department is responsible for. We also included any tentative training dates, training topics. There's an instructor expectations section. We always make sure that our faculty and staff know what support is available to them, as well as what materials they can reference. I'm sure most colleges and universities have this, but we do, we call it the OEDC. It's our online educator development course. And within that course, we have all of our trainings recorded. We have all sorts of checklists for instructors, anything that they can use to be ADA compliant, and just overall well-rounded and better. They can feel better in their instruction and their approach to the classroom. So we constantly are pushing out information. But when we first started this, we pushed out the documentation and the guidance to the instructors, and as expected, we did get some hesitancy, and we found out about some unknown issues. The first one that we were able to address very quickly and to fix was our template was not accessible. And so without having an accessible template, it was at a 45% accessibility rate. Without having an accessible template, all of these courses that were being created for specific semesters were starting out with the 54%. So we did have to figure that out. It did take some trial and error, but we are now at 100% accessibility for our template for all courses. We did find out that there were a lot of copy all course content instead of specific course content. So we created some learning tools and some instruction, and we recorded videos and sent those out to try to get that covered. And then alt text generation. The instructors really had some pushback on this because their main concern was they were afraid they were going to give away correct answers to quiz questions. They were afraid that they weren't going to put the right language in there for students. So all of that led to creating an alt text generator. So the way that we monitor progress, when we first started this, we view the Ally Institution report within our admin privileges. We looked at the college as a whole for the 2025 semester, and we provided that information to everybody that needed it, which is the entire college essentially, besides students. And then after we looked at the full college, we were able to break it down into individual departments or sub-accounts for better understanding of the below threshold courses, which is 60% or below. And we selected that based off of WCAG's recommendation of what is considered accessible. Within each department or within the sub-accounts listed, you can fun fact, you can look at the individual courses in those sub-accounts. And so it did provide a list of all courses, and we were able to go through and look to see who was above 60% or who was below, and then we were able to look at the individual accessibility issues for each course. We were focused on getting faculty members familiar with the Ally reports and how to use different correction features. Each individual instructor was tasked with correcting their own fall 2025 courses while we worked on sending out recommendations for accessibility compliance within those courses. So at the time that I originally did this presentation with my dean, 2026 courses were not available until October 15th. So excitingly enough, we did start out at 100% when courses were originally created. I have not checked it yet, just simply because I don't want to see anything negative if negativity is out there. But I did look after a couple people had copied course content over, and we were at 98. So it's not terrible at all, because we've really been pushing before you copy course content. Please make sure it's accessible. That way you're not having to do twice the work. We continue to stick to our compliance plan. That way, we're remaining accountable to what the college is, how the college is progressing. So we did accomplish September 2025 and October 2025 goals. We did communicate via email with all the promised information to all of our division chairs as well as the deans. The division chairs were asked to share the specific accessibility compliance recommendations with their faculty members. So we have had some instructors contact us to kind of keep us in the loop of what's going on with their courses and to see how what other approaches they can take. So as of today, I'm recording this on October 31st. We are ahead in our compliance plan. November 2025 goals are completed, technically, but we don't want to release those just to eliminate any kind of overwhelm for faculty. But they are working on their 2026 courses right now. Fall can be kind of pushed to the side because spring is the semester where the compliance due date is. So everybody's favorite conversation right now, including mine, is the LTI integrations in Canvas. So I did pull a report in my settings section of my admin tab, and I did confirm the pulled integrations from our help at ACCS. So they did provide a master list of LTI integrations, which we received in Excel format. I did decide as an added precaution to send out a form to faculty and staff just to see what kind of LTIs they were using. And as a good rule of thumb, we did let them know, hey, if it integrates, if it's something outside of Canvas that you can put in Canvas and it works and it provides instruction, it's an LTI. Plain and simple. Just to make it as to the point as possible. So we sent out the form to our division chairs, who then distributed to their faculty and staff, or just did a deep dive of their own Canvas courses to see kind of what they were looking at. And we did close that on, I believe, October the 15th, and we did have a couple of late submissions, so it's not too bad. So I searched. I did several searches for LTI integration accessibility statements, voluntary product accessibility templates, VPATs, and any or, either one works fine. We prefer VPAT, but ACR is fine, but an accessibility conformance report. They look very similar and they act in the same format, from what I've been told and from what I've read. So, some things that I learned when looking at LTI integrations and third-party providers. Most LTIs have a mention of a VPAT or an ACR listed on their website, or they have the thing provided already. So that's really nice to be able just to download and go. Some LTIs have a request process for those items, and I did find out that most of the LTIs were quick to respond. Overall, there were 35 LTI integrations that either did not follow up with my request, they did not have any information available, or they were just no longer active. So some more stats on the LTIs. Currently, there are 61 integrations that are either not WCAG 2.1 level AA standard, they're not compliant with it, that have a low score from an outside accessibility scoring company. They have not received, I have not received any follow-up from those specific vendors, or they just don't have any available information out for public knowledge. Which, in my opinion, feels like if there's no information out there, it's probably not accessible. But on the positive side, there were 146 LTI integrations that were fully WCAG 2.1 level AA compliant, so that was nice. And I am happy to share any of our VPATs or ACRs with anyone that would request those, as well as a spreadsheet of compliant and non-compliant LTI integrations. So some of our more practical strategies that we have found that work. We do offer faculty and staff training. We try to offer at least 2 a month since we started. So in August, we offered WCAG and Core Principles, Canvas Accessibility. September, we offered creating accessible Word documents. October, we offered small edits, big impact, accessible design for all learners. In the alt text generator, it was a labor of love. So let's see if I can pull it up, if it'll pull it on Google Chrome. So this was created using Google Gemini. The good thing about Google Gemini is either you can do a full codes, you can build a full code, or you can use their more accessible, maybe, I don't even know if I'll call it accessible, but you can use one of those approaches if you would prefer to do that. It's kind of like a hands-on, like you drag and drop specific things in. It was a little more on the time-consuming side, but it wasn't as difficult as I expected it to be. We also offer one-on-one sessions and help as needed, and then we communicate and we share all of our ideas to the best of our ability. So I am going to exit out of this. That is the end of my fall form.
Sticking to
So much for attending, and have a great day.
There you are.